Apparently, we're heading into this final. Um, so yeah, it looks like we're going to see the green rush of Lu versus the yellow rush of Thormond. Um, who do you think is going to be favored in this matchup, Frodaddy?
I don't remember the decks from Thormond now. It's been a while. I think Lou might benefit from having just played a sharp match with King Dan's.
Like he'll
Um,
be all warmed up.
yeah, he's definitely in the groove right now.
So quite often in Rush v Rush, the person with Explore has a slight advantage, I think. So Thorman's going to have to go on the defensive uh, straight away, um, which he really doesn't want to do because he's running stuff like archers in his deck. So I think that this is a really explosive start from Lou that could turn out being a difficult one for Thorman to deal with. Um, Lou now has Thorman has to decide how he's going to approach this matchup, and he chooses to try and just kind of out collect Lou and try and win it that way, which is definitely an interesting strategy. What do you think of that?
Uh, there's not too many options to respond to a double land Explorer King's Faithful opening, which is pretty much the best, or at least one of the best rush starts you can have. That second to Doom Drink, maybe.
Yeah,
Uh,
and particularly Yellow Rush usually has some form of answer, which isn't very efficient, but something like maybe Soul Drain plus Wind Soldier or something to deal with these King's Faithfuls, but they're not actually available in this format. So this is going to be something that Thormond has to be just with fighting. Um, and because of that, he's going to struggle perhaps to activate his prayer. Um, just because Lu has so much pressure on the desert tile that Thormond has created so far.
this is interesting. Lou has the decision now. Do I play the Outland Ranger or do I wait till next turn and play the Return Force?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to play the Vijoran Force. Um, although maybe... Okay, so the options you actually have right now are... As removal for yellow are Soul Drain, not Soul Drain, not Wind Soldier, but you do have Last Nightmare. So maybe you, while you would normally value the Vijoran Force higher, maybe you would instead in this format value the Outland Ranger higher. I'm not sure. Or maybe he just wants to drop a second Faithful because he's seen that his opponent hasn't been able to deal with it so far. I really like Thormon's play here. Just setting up the archer to double collect and out of harm's way. That could be really beneficial in the long run in this game.
Yeah, he's salvaging his
Yeah,
not necessarily his poor start, but Lou's great start, where he didn't have many options to with this archer, but now he's put in a great position.
yeah, and this is why he went for this double prairie play last turn. It's one that I didn't see, and I think it could really be extremely beneficial for him, especially if he draws. I believe Flashwind is a rare, so if he draws a Flashwind, then all of a sudden he's in a great spot here, particularly with the Last Nightmare in hand.
So just to let everybody know, we're going to be interviewing the winner of this match and the winner of the Frost Cup.
I think Lou is trying to decide between, yeah, he could have played the aggressive Vijoran Force, but he wants to really threaten this Winston Archer because it's such a big threat. I guess Monk is another form of removal. Usually it's much more aggressive. You're using it to hit face, but it does actually count in this instance as some sort of removal from hand. Not being as efficient as Soul Drain or Wind Soldier, but still pretty good in this spot, I think, if Thormond decides to do that.
Well, Thormond's already accomplished one thing, and that is detouring his opponent's original plans.
Yeah.
He forced Luuu to respond to this archer.
Okay, so he decides to just use the last nightmare to protect this rather than the monk. So he values the last nightmare plus the safeguard on his King's Faithful lower than he does the monk potentially being aggressive. Which I think I would have definitely preferred to see the monk come out here rather than, because your opponent's playing Green Rush. You've seen him play stuff like Vajoran Force. I think this was such an excellent opportunity to use the monk. I would definitely prefer saving the last nightmare for one of Luu's bigger threats.
Well, it's not entirely inefficient when you factor that you have to use 2 cards, which are probably going to total up to almost 6 Faria.
It's going to be really one of the most interesting things about this format is how, without there being any standard meta decks, you're not sure exactly what you need to be playing around. So you don't know exactly how highly you should value each card. So I think that's one of the toughest things about this format. I think Thormond's deciding whether he's going to try and get some aggressive lands here or just play the monk to clear. So he just uses it to clear, and then maybe he's going to set up another archer or something. Or he could look for a draw if he is playing Flash Winds in the deck. So what he's done here is kind of akin to a fork in chess. There's so many things that Luuu wants to deal with. And in the end, he decides not to deal with any of them. So what this means is unless Luuu blocks it, Thormond's finally going to be able to activate this prayer and start buffing his Zealous. So really smart play from Thormond to kind of...
Yeah, and we've seen something from Luuu here that we haven't seen most of the day, and maybe it's wearing on him. And he could have considered moving back to collect, thereby leaving this southern forest for his Verduran force.
Right. The only problem with that is then he just kind of trades into both archers with the King's Faithful, and I think he's looking for a bit more value than that.
Wow. I got to hand it to Thormond. He's finally got that prayer off. It looked like it was going to be pretty impossible earlier.
Yeah, it's still not drawing any movement effects. But he's collecting every turn, while Luuu isn't really collecting at all. I guess Luu's got 1 collection per turn. This looks like a decent spot for Thormond, at least. He has so many little things on board that green just can't handle them. And I think at some point soon we'll start seeing Thormond making more aggressive lands to utilize the monk. How do you feel about just playing, trading the Vajoran Force into the King's Faithful? Okay. I was going to suggest just going for an additional Faria and playing Grove Guardian. Thormond's, I guess it would be in line with the Windstorm Archer. So this is something that Thormond really has going well for him. This Archer is looking down this site where 2 of Luu's green lands are. And any aggressive land that Luuu wants to place, the next one is probably going to be here. So that's 3 aggressive lands that Luuu is a little bit scared to place anything on, purely because the Archer is looking down that site.
See Thormond probably planning on trading the monk into the faithful.
I think he's trying to decide whether it's worth doing that or whether it's worth saving the monk to hit face while he has 2 Saggies on board and a clunky hand. But he decides to take to just get rid of the King's Faithful, deny his opponent 1 Failure, and then getting the Deathwalker out is really big here, because what's Luuu supposed to play that deals with it efficiently? The best is a Grave Guardian, but now Luuu has to wait another turn before he can actually play a threat.
Wingate a little bit too late.
Yeah. Outcast Tower isn't going to do much for him either, so these structures draws are just kind of throwing all sorts of players off their off what they would like.
Do you think he's? Yeah, I was going to wonder if he's going to play this Deathwalker aggressively.
Yeah,
using
it
the
makes
Wingate.
a lot of sense. Is he winning the race here against? Yeah, I think he wins the race as well, because if he does that and his opponent plays, for example, a Vijoran Force, he can block with Outcast Tower. So they'll be 1 turn behind in the race.
Yep. Well, 2 turns, right?
I think 1 turn, because he needs 1 additional. At the moment, it's a 3-turn clock, but I'm sure it's going to be more than that soon.
Yeah, because it's a 3-turn clock for the Force.
Yeah. So,
and we see Luuu. Is he? Yeah, he's playing around the Outcast Tower block. That was very smart.
Yeah. I think with this much failure, Thormond might have considered sacrificing the Windstorm Archer, even though it's double collecting each turn. It might have been the better play just to keep this forest covered as well.
Right.
Because if you're hitting face, then also your Sagittarius is double collecting each turn. But
yeah, it's true.
Second Outcast Tower is going to be pretty annoying for Thormond, and these bad draws are going to be like one of the few things that can actually get Luuu back into the game. Thormond has so much failure, but his hand costs 0. So Luuu could possibly. No, I don't think he can block face. He's going to be dead 2 turns from now with this Flash Wind. So he needs some way to taunt up the 6/5, which fortunately for him he drew last turn. So really nice decision there to not actually play anything and just wait for the Grave Guardian. Thormond's considering playing the Outcast Tower on this tile, but that would kind of block him off as well. Ooh, and you can't play Outcast Tower next to the Wingate. So, is there anything that Luuu can do?
He can make a forest underneath yeah, he can make the forest underneath the Deathwalker, taunting up both those guys and forcing Thormond to draw an event.
But if he does that, the Deathwalker trades in, and then the Outland Ranger hits. Looks like game over to me.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yep. So the Wingate really is the card that ultimately tilted it in Thormund's favor.
And I think Thormund's the only person that we've seen make use of Wingate. I think we saw Mudnik use it as well earlier. So some really smart deck building going on there. Taking advantage of things that other people perhaps didn't think of or perhaps didn't get a chance to play. But going off in a different direction than most people. And his Yellow Rush is 3-0 in this format. And from what we've seen, his other decks are just as strong. Lou going again with the Green Rush. And this is a deck that he struggled a bit against Dan's, and we did see it in the first round. Okay, so well, Thormund picking up the Queen's Guard could be pretty important here. Also the Unbound for anything that Oakling ends up proccing on. Lou's going to really want to get out Vijoran Force next turn and then Vijoran Force the turn after. And that's going to be a really solid start that Thormund's going to perhaps struggle to deal with. But Ancient Herald out of Spell Whirl is going to be very good, particularly because he has the Unbound in hand. So I think it's a 4 in 5 chance to get a favourable trade with this Herald now, if he uses the Unbound. So I would expect that he'll do it. Because that also then denies the second Vijoran Force.
You mean if he trades and he's got a leftover 8
if
cost?
He's got leftover like 8. Okay, so there's Runin as well, right? So there's Runin, which is 6/6, which will be a bad target, and then there's the Wavecrash Colossus, which is 7/7, and then the other 3 I think are positive. There's Ogre
Beirut.
Battler, which isn't great.
Is he even? Yeah. No.
There's Ogre Battler
6/9. There it is.
Yep. So it's not bad, but it's not the best. But Beirut would have pretty much just won the game instantly there.
Yeah. Definitely worth the shot.
Because he's against Green Rush, do you think he ever decides to Aurora's Creation, the Ogre Battler? Or is that just too greedy? He's still 3 lands away from playing the second one, but maybe too greedy, but I don't know. I think I'd certainly consider it at least.
They take out the Grove Guardians, and they survive the Verduran forces. So maybe not, but I don't know if he'll have time to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think in general it's probably one of the strongest cards against Green Rush. He doesn't want to unbound the 8-drop, I don't think.
Just to keep score real quick, that's 2 Faeria that Thormund has lost because of the Outcast Tower, and 2 Faeria that Lou wasn't even going to collect anyway.
Okay. Do you think he's going to unbound? Or is that too risky? The fact he's playing Kingsguard ahead of Queensguard makes me think he might unbound here. Oh, and he gets Beirut.
There it is.
That's going to be pretty big, I believe. Wow.
You know that Thormond was thinking about the synergy between six cost and Unbound Evolution with
Yeah.
both of these Queen and King guards.
Yep. I think we've seen quite a lot of that. A lot of people have been playing. We've seen Wavecrafters. We've seen Gabriel Nobles. But wow, these lands are just always going to be blue now, and that's going to be huge in terms of how this game is going to pan out. And Thormond,
So you definitely create it here, don't you?
I was actually thinking of gaining a Faria and then playing a Queen's Guard to block the Daring Adventurer killing off your Beirut. Just because I think Beirut is such a strong card and you get value from Queen's Guard, but Thormond decides to instead prioritize getting Ludwig off, and Humbling Vision is going to be really huge. It's one of the best cards that you can get against green. So it feels like Thormond is in a very good spot right now, particularly with the Humbling pickup.
Well, both of our lines left the Beirut on board, or at least your line left the Beirut on board, and the creation, saved it for later. But
yeah, and Lou just
the
concedes.
Luuu90 was a more profitable play, it looks like. More than a couple people picked Thormond to win this tournament today, or at least thought highly of his deck building skills.
Yeah, I mean, Thormond's done, as we were talking about earlier, Thormond has been one of the most innovative deck builders in the game. And he clearly understands the game very well. He has a lot of high ladder positions, qualifying for the last monthly cup through ladder, I believe. So it's not a huge surprise that he's found such a good trio of decks here. And now Lou's got to take out this this was a red control deck, right? Once again with his green rush deck. I think he knows that he has to win with it anyway, so he may as well do it now.
Right.
And as he knows what Thormond's playing, red should theoretically struggle against green. So we'll see how that works. The only thing I would say about that is Therian Golem doesn't seem to be a card that Lou is playing. Whereas I think the red deck is still playing stuff like Bombslinger, which is strong. And
we see the Lord of Terror.
Yeah, the Lord of Terror, which Thormond may well be playing 3 of. So yeah, that could be. I think Thormond chose to keep that in the mulligan as well, which I think was a really solid choice. And he picks up the Bombslinger, so Thormond has a really great hand here for what he's up against. That King's Faithful pickup could be really big. Because he can play King's Faithful, and if Thormond now plays Lord of Terror, he can use Runin's command to kill it. Oh, you see, we were talking about this earlier. We haven't seen as many devouring plants as I expected at all. Most people seem to have been preferring to use the Derelict Towers and the what's the other one? Oh, the Blood Obelisk. But I thought devouring plant would be one of the most common things that we'd see. Yeah, and I have to say I'm at least a little bit disappointed that no one chose to bring the Architects, which is a shame. So this gives you some sort of idea of the power level of the card. that even in this sort of format, which rewards structures, no one brought architects or imperial engineers.
Right. Just in most cases, they seem too slow, and you can't fix that by giving them quote unquote haste, because then they'd be too powerful.
Yeah.
As they are. There's been some interesting discussions on Discord about doing stuff differently with structures.
Yeah. So it's difficult to see how Lou is ever going to deal with this load of terror now without losing a lot of value. I guess he can play Outland Ranger near it, but at best he's going to have to also sacrifice his Rinner's Messenger.
Yeah, he can't play both. Or could he? Yeah, he could, but not. Well, if he used the Outland Ranger to block the Runin's Messenger, he could hit face at least once with the Messenger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Decides instead to draw. And unfortunately, he's not going to be able to play the Grave Guardian. So, yeah, I wonder if it is in his mind to kind of start trying to collect on one of the sides. I think Outland Ranger is the ideal one to do that. Oh, the second Lord of Terror pickup is going to be huge.
With two
now.
bomb slingers in hand, too.
Yeah. It's very difficult to see how Luke can get back in this game now. So I guess this is looking like a trade of 5 Farrier for 5 Farrier. With the Grave Guardian coming down next to the Lord of Terror. So I guess Luke won't be too disappointed with that, but every single little Farrier is so much more valuable for Lou because he's a rush deck and he's not really collecting. Compared to Thormond, who's consistently collected from both of his wells all game. And yeah, I'm not surprised at all to see Lou start setting up some double collection. Maybe a little surprised that he decided not to just move the messenger back. But I guess this way Thormond himself doesn't get to double collect.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Plays around Thormond's ground shaker.
But it's still bad against Bomb Slinger. Well, it's not the worst against Bomb Slinger, but it would still get punished by Ciphers or Flame Burst. But I think it's something that Lou had to do there.
Thormond wishing he could +1 in Cypher's Wrath. But he's really got to... I like the double lands here. It's time to start going aggressive. He can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, with the Bomb Slinger and the Ground Shaker in hand, it's maybe not so bad to wait. But oh, there's the third Lord of Terror. So that's the third Lord of Terror in the top 12 cards. And also 2 Bomb Slingers. So, yeah. I mean, but Lou's also had all 3... I think he's had all 3 Vajoran Forces as well in the top 10 cards. So, Thormond's... What should be an unfavored matchup, Thormond looks like he's in a very strong position.
But keep in mind, too, he probably runs 3 Bomb Slingers, and we obviously know he runs 3 Lord of Terrors, as you hinted at earlier in the game. So kudos to him for,
Yeah, for
putting
3
of those in there.
The meta read that people will be playing quite a lot of green, so it makes sense to include Lord of Terror. And Thormond's actually the only person that I don't think brought any green cards in any of his decks. So yeah, what we learned from this is green needs a buff. Structures need buffs. Lou with like one last stab at this. Thormond doesn't have any immediate way to deal with it, but the load of terror coming down should be enough, unless Lou top decks a Royal Judge. Which he doesn't. He top decks a Grave Guardian, which also I don't think will be enough. So he just takes the hit and then. Yeah, I think I prefer the Waryak just double collecting between the wells on the left hand side. I think he needs to set something up there, and it's much less bad against, say, Garadan, Groundshaker, than the King's Faithful.
Wow, the two cards you don't want to see.
Someone's going to take it 3-0.